Your interview will make or break whether you get into tech sales or not. And so in this video, you're gonna see a live breakdown of a real interview call recording that one of my clients had with a recruiter so that we can see what he did well and what he could do better. Enjoy.
Hello, good morning, Susan.
Hi, Cole. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Can't complain. How are you?
Good.
Okay, good intro so far, right? Positive, upbeat, doing well.
Very good. And give me a call for our scheduled phone screen for the SDR role, the sales development representative role. And first question I have.
All right, here's our first improvement area. So one of the big parts in an interview is you learning how to take control. As an SDR, you need to be confident and you need to own the frame of the conversation. And so right here within the first 27 seconds, she has taken control of this call. She went right past any opportunity you had to break the ice, build a human connection, make this a meaningful conversation for her. We have to remember that from the recruiter's point of view, this is probably her 7th call like this today. And the day before that, she had 8. The next day, she's got another 9 to do. These recruiters are having the same exact conversation all day long. Imagine how boring and annoying and frustrating that would be. And so when you finally get an opportunity to get in front of one of these recruiters, you've got to be different. You've got to capture their attention, build a human connection, build some trust, bring in a laugh. You've got to do something different. And so already within the first couple seconds of this call, what we want to do differently is if we scroll back here a little bit, let's go back to around here.
Give me a call for our scheduled phone screen for the SDR role, the sales development representative role.
I would have cut in right there. I would have said, yeah, totally. Hey, Susan, I'm really excited for the call today. Thank you so much for your time. I can imagine you've had a ton of these calls today. Before we get into it, I just wanted to bring up and kind of ask you about, I don't know if you saw the video I sent over prior to our interview, but I did some research on you and I noticed that you actually started as an SDR at a tech company and now you're a recruiter. So just before we get into like all the professional stuff, I just wanted to say, I think that's pretty cool. And I'm just kind of curious if you had anything like interesting to share with me about your journey. So look, what I just said was not perfect, but the heart of what I'm saying is this is going to throw her off in the best way, where now she's going to get an opportunity to talk about herself a little bit. And disclaimer, us human beings are very selfish. We like talking about ourselves. It makes our ego feel good. And so right away, I would have taken the frame of that call and just threw that in there. And she might have said, "Oh yeah, no, I actually started as a as an SDR at a small tech company and worked my way up, and I really like the recruitment side, and I'm having a blast doing it." And then you can say, "Hey, that's so awesome. I think it's really cool to see your career progression that way." Another example of an icebreaker you could throw in there is something personal, right? Sometimes these recruiters have personal things in their LinkedIn headline, like dog mom. Hey, Susan, real quick before we get into it, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for the time today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Second of all, before we get too much into the professional side, I just had a quick question. I noticed on LinkedIn that you said you're a dog mom. I too have a dog. I've got a cute little golden retriever or whatever the heck it is. I'm kind of curious, like, what kind of dog do you have? And now you guys are going to be laughing about your dogs for the first 3 minutes, and she's going to remember this conversation and she's going to feel emotionally connected to you. So in this case, what you need to do before you let the recruiter take control of the conversation is you need to very tactfully take control of it so that you get a chance to break that ice with the recruiter. And just that little piece I mentioned about, hey, I sent you a video. I'm not sure if you saw it. This is just a tactic that you all can implement, those that are listening. My client, you obviously know what the tactic is, but you can basically send out videos beforehand, before your interview, just doing a little bit of research on the company and who you're interviewing with, just to stand out that much more. So yeah, all in all, that's the first tweak I would make. And I think the first 2-3 minutes of an interview set the whole entire tone for the rest of the interview. If you let the interview and the tone of the interview become sterile, then the whole interview is going to follow and it's going to feel like just one more interview she had in her calendar. But if you can set the tone with some laughter, some human connection, some personal touch there, that then it's going to warm the whole conversation up.
And first question I have for you here, are you familiar with, have you done some research?
Yes. Yeah, I know that you guys are basically like a cloud.
Okay. So again, we just moved right into job interview. Corporate, yes, I'm going to answer your question. We are responsible to bring the humanity in. So again, this would have been an opportunity if we didn't do the intro I just talked about to say something like, yeah, hey, Susan, first of all, thank you so much for your time. I know you're doing a bunch of these calls. I really appreciate you making the time for me, and I'm really excited to interview here. And yeah, I totally did my research. I know you guys, let's see.
Based human capital like management software. So you basically like streamline all the HR tasks, payroll, I believe it's like tax compliance, stuff of that nature, like attendance and time. And you guys kind of put it into one hub so that HR managers or owners, depending on how big the company is, they can kind of focus more on growth instead of those like back office tasks.
So my only slight improvement here would be tone, right? I can actually appreciate a calm, collected, professional tone, but we want to bring some excitement, a little bit of energy, a little bit of warmth to it. You don't want to go the other side of the spectrum, which is like, I'm so excited to be here, and you just sound weird. But you do want to make sure you're keeping that professional level tone, but you're adding a little bit of warmth to it.
Right, exactly. So good job. So, yeah, let me share some additional.
One thing you can say when you finish explaining what the company does is you can invite them to correct you or coach you. And so the very simple way to do that would be, as you're ending explaining what they do, you just say, am I off on any of that, or did I have that mostly right? And it just shows that humble, coachable attitude, spirit, and mindset.
Details, some you may or may not have caught, online, but we are a leading provider of human capital management software.
Okay, we're gonna fast forward through this stuff.
We help with we're going to call it our state harbor. Are you familiar with that term?
No.
Okay, so most of the time.
Just asked about State Harbor. Are you familiar with that term? Good job saying you don't know. If you don't know something, say you don't know, because there's nothing worse than asking someone a question, asking if they know something. They say yes, and you know they don't know what it means. So good job there.
If you are running for 86,000 for this role, is that all in line with what you were expecting, and is it all in line with what you're looking for?
Yes, actually, that's quite the range I was looking, so I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, all right, you're good.
Good. So she just brought up compensation. Simple answer, right? Like, yeah, that's actually within the range of exactly what I've been looking at in terms of other opportunities I have in the pipeline and stuff like that. So that all sounds good. You don't want to over explain. You don't want to ask too many questions there. Just let that be said. All they're trying to do from their perspective is make sure that your compensation goals and targets align, right? So don't get too deep into that yet. Don't worry about the details of the comp and how does the plan work. Just, yeah, that's pretty in line with the other opportunities I'm looking at right now. That all sounds great.
So let's talk about your sales experience. How many total years of sales or business development experience do you have?
All right, here we go. Tell me about your sales experience. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your resume. Tell me about what kind of work experience you have. All of these questions will be asked in different ways, but what you want to do is, instead of responding to the sterile interview question, tell me about your sales experience, you want to take a step back and become a human to them again, right? This is where you want to share a little bit of your tell me about yourself. You want to share a little bit about how you grew up, whether it was a good childhood or a bad childhood. If it was good or bad, that is now your why in life. Like, if you had a bad childhood, I want to do better for my future family. That's why I'm so driven to be successful. Or if you had a good childhood, I want to replicate the childhood I had and give that to my future family. And so that's why I'm driven to work so hard. That led me into various pursuits like academic performance. I was always really into school and getting good grades. me personally, I wasn't, right? So I would talk about sports. I've always had a knack for sports and just being in a competitive environment and being able to work with a team. And that actually led me to this work experience. And now you start talking through your resume a little bit. Like I started off, being a bartender at a restaurant. And I really liked that because I got to talk to people and serve people, but it also gave me a little bit of a look into how to generate revenue for an organization. And you could do that even through, being a bartender, which I thought was pretty cool. I also like being able to control my income. Like working for those tips was very fruitful. So I then, pivoted into this ops manager role just to get more professional B2B experience, right? Like understanding how businesses work. But I really missed being in the sales role. And so that's actually what brings me back today is this opportunity where I can be in a professional environment representing a software like you guys are promoting, but in a role where I can really control my destiny and control my income through my performance. Because I think all the experience I had playing sports growing up and as a bartender has set me up really well to be in a position now where I know I want to grind for my income and I'm ready to do that. And so that's why I think, being here with this opportunity is a perfect fit for me. So that's a rough version of what that tell me about yourself looks like. But you'll notice what my client does here is he goes right into answering the sales question, which isn't bad. It's just what everyone else does. So once again, we're kind of white noise to the recruiter. Like, yep, here we go again. We're going to go through the sales experience. Then I've got to ask this next question. We want to be different. So if you can share a story about, growing up was not easy, right? Single family income, single mom, whatever. Or if you had a great childhood, yeah, growing up, my parents worked really hard. I got my start, to be successful in school through academics or athletics, whatever. And that's going to, again, turn you into a human being in front of this recruiter where she's actually going to care about you and pay attention to you rather than you being white noise.
Altogether, it would be just shy of 3 years. So it'd be like 2 years and 9 months.
Okay. How was that selling?
So initially it was 2.5 years. I was a business owner. I was selling landscaping services, landscaping maintenance services.
And the way you would pivot away from tell me about yourself into answering the specific question would be once you get that little preface of your life story, your background, then you could say, and so to answer the question specifically, once you've shared everything I just shared, you would say, answering your question specifically, I've had X amount of sales experience, but really I view my whole life as I've always been in sales without knowing it. And again, you're different. You're creating these connections, this perspective that she probably hasn't heard yet.
And tell me a little bit about SWORD SDR coaching. What is that?
Yeah, I'm actually glad to that. So, SWORD is actually a one-on-one coaching program where I work with an SDR leader. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. His name is Jack Knight. But when I kind of made the decision to break into sales, I didn't want to wing it. I wanted to take the good job. So I reached out to him and made the investment. And he's kind of been teaching me like all the outbound workflows of what it takes to be an SDR. So he's been getting me familiar with Apollo. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that software. But basically outbounding, prospecting, email, LinkedIn, all that stuff. And he's kind of been treating me the same way an SDR manager would. So, there's KPIs that I got to come back with every day. And, there's metrics that I got to hit. But the only difference is that, instead of prospecting buyers, I'm prospecting hiring managers and recruiters. So through that, I've kind of been getting used to what the SDR role would be like.
Very well said. Very, very well said. Now she knows that you are taking steps to develop this skill set. Even though you haven't held a formal SDR role, you're taking the necessary steps to grow in the skill set. And in her mind, you're less risky than someone who's just completely an outsider that's never tried to learn the SDR life.
So you're prospecting who?
Like hiring managers and recruiters. The SWORD is a program designed to help you get a job in tech sales.
Okay, all right. So you're not, so he doesn't have clients that you're actually working on?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. So
the only improvement there that I would make is being more specific with KPIs. I would say, I'm responsible for roughly 10 to 20 cold calls a day, sending out 20 to 30 follow-up emails per day. We aim for around 2 to 3 videos a day as well. And this is all multi-channel, multi-threaded outbound. And so those are kind of the daily KPIs we shoot for. That's going to give her even more of a concrete understanding that this isn't just like a tech sales boot camp or whatever, but this is actually living a day in the life of an SDR with the aim of getting into tech sales, but you've got metrics accompanied with it. You've got these real things that aren't just, I want to get into tech, but I'm actually doing the job.
I would knock like 60 to 70 doors, and if there were days where everybody was just not answering, I would go through more like 80 to 100. But in that role, that was more so my experience with setting appointments for the sales team and kind of qualifying. We were basically walking on the door, and as we knocked, we were looking at the paint, seeing if there was any chips. We were looking at the windows, seeing if they were older. I'm not sure how if you're in Texas, or I'm not sure where you're at, but in the southern states, a lot of the old windows are like aluminum frames. So
okay, so real quick here, we're starting to get into some unnecessary information. Like we could have landed the plane right around.
Answer the door really, to how many doors I can knock, but usually on a day where I was having good conversations, I would knock like 60, 70 doors. And if there were days where everybody was just not answering, I would go through more like 80 to 100.
Boom. I would have just ended right there. That's it. But now we're going into explaining the types of doors and aluminum in Texas and the South. And it's like, hold on, we don't need all that intel. It's just too much. If they ask, cool, share. But you can even hear her. She's trying to cut you off like, right, okay. She doesn't need to know the rest. So that would have been just like hey, let me land the plane here and let them ask follow-up questions.
But in that role, that was more so my experience with setting appointments for the sales team and kind of qualifying. We were basically.
And in light of that, what I would say is earlier when she was asking if you had experience making high volume outbound calls, instead of saying, no, I don't, I would have just said, not specifically with calls, but in my door-to-door setting role, we did make calls, but mostly what we did is high volume door knocks. So I'm totally used to being in a high volume environment. In fact, we would go out and knock 70, 80 doors a day. And if we weren't getting conversations, that'd be closer to 80 to 100 with phone calls interlaced throughout the days. So not a stranger to high volume outbound and kind of the rejection that comes with that. Because really, that's what she's asking. We always want to think from that perspective of like, why is she asking me this question? Well, she wants to make sure that I have the grit needed and the tenacity needed to be an SDR at this company, right? And so if we just say, no, I don't have experience doing high volume cold calling, then it's like, oh, okay, this person might crack under the pressure of this role. Whereas if you just led with confidence of like, yeah, so not specifically with cold calling, but I've definitely been in high volume outbound environments before. And then you detail the door-to-door experience with those daily KPIs, 70 to 80 doors. That's what she's looking for to go, okay, cool. Yeah, you've got the grit needed. And you could even say like, I don't know if you've ever door knocked, but it definitely requires some grit. And so I'm really grateful that I learned that because I know that's going to come in handy in my SDR job. And that's going to satisfy her fear that maybe you don't have the requisite tenacity.
None of us there 2 weeks straight. Other than that, I was in the top half during my time there. So okay.
Good. I like how specific you are. We never want to say like, yeah, I did well, and then give zero data or metrics to support that. The fact that you added some metrics here, really solid, and that's going to be evidence that you actually did what you said you did.
How do you build honest relationships and genuine rapport with potential customers?
Okay, so one thing I was always taught was to connect with them on one level. So if, for example, when I used to knock on doors, that was a whole part of it. Within those 50.
Okay, so great question here, right? This one kind of catches us off guard, right? How do you build honest relationship and genuine rapport with potential customers? If you're not ready for that question, you're going to get caught flat-footed. So this is a perfect example of using the 3P framework, right? We want to do perspective, proof, plan. So yeah, first off, great question. My perspective on building these genuine relationships with prospects, it all starts with trust, right? Like they have to know that I'm there to help them and not sell them something. And so the way that I've seen this work in my door-to-door sales role is specifically, I can remember this one instance where I went up to this person's house and they were very sketched out, blah, 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 specific story showing how you just executed your perspective, right? So that's the perspective, the proof, right? You share that story. And so, yeah, plan as an SDR at company, I understand I'm going to be cold calling people and, I've got to help them see that they can trust me within the first 10 seconds of them talking to me. And so I think the way I'm going to do that is one, controlling my tone, making sure that I don't sound like, I'm there with commission breath or something, but I'm genuinely there to help them. But then two is make sure my opener is structured in a way that they can see I've done my research on what their company's going through, and that being an open door to sharing how we might be able to help them. So that's kind of how I see that playing out in the SDR role over at company. Would you have anything you'd give feedback on there that maybe you'd suggest I do differently? Now you're letting them coach you. Now you're letting them give you feedback to help you improve, which is going to show humility and coachability, which is so important.
Okay, so one thing I was always taught was to connect with them on one level. So if, for example, when I used to knock on doors,
For example, so we went way too fast on perspective and we went right into an example, right? So it's not bad. This isn't a bad answer so far. It's just, it's not complete. We want to tell a complete story around this.
that was the whole part of it. Within those 15 seconds we were waiting for the customer to answer, we were looking for anything to connect with. So, for example, I'm in Pennsylvania, I go to Penn State. If I saw somebody had a Michigan flag in the yard, or Ohio State, or they had a Penn State flag, you know, I would kind of connect with them and go, oh my God, I didn't know you were an Ohio State fan, it's not a deal breaker, or, you know, oh my God, you fell in line. Or even if it wasn't anything, you know, you would connect, perhaps you like their clothing, or, you know, while you're pitching, you would compliment them in some way. Just try to get them to smile. I would imagine here in this role, you know, if I saw something on LinkedIn.
Really good proof. That's perfect. I love it. It's real, it's tangible, there's examples, and then beautiful pivot. I can imagine in this role,
I would try to connect with you somehow. I would try to connect with your school, or perhaps like where you live. You know, how do you like it there? What's it like? Stuff of that nature, or even work experience.
Okay, all right, very good.
solid. I like that answer. So all we were missing there is a little bit more elaboration on the perspective, but we had proof and plan right there in spades. That was beautiful.
You stay updated with expert knowledge of, you know, the product, industry, competition, marketing, that heard you over LinkedIn. So that's one of your sources, right?
If for example, I was in a role and I was already selling the product, like most of my knowledge would be from internally. So whether that would be from managers, from reps that are doing well, the material they have.
Good answer. I like that.
I think the best way to learn about a product is if you're actually in it. But if I was doing it externally, like for example, the way I research you guys does a lot for your website. I like to go on YouTube and kind of, I'm very much a visual learner, so I like to see and hear and you know.
I love the reference to the way I researched you guys, because you're highlighting that again for her, that you actually did research.
People who are speaking about the product. So I watched a video on the CEO.
Oh man, you're dropping names. This is chef's kiss. If you can ever drop a specific name or quote from a podcast you listen to, or like I mentioned earlier, a customer story, a case study, man, they're going to be like, oh, you actually did your homework. That's amazing. So great job here.
There was a video of him on YouTube kind of explaining it, and that's where, when he said growth, that kind of like connected the dots for me here. I was like, oh, okay, like all this is so that companies can grow. But other than that, there's a lot on the website. We're doing it internally through the employees I'm working with.
Good answer. I think don't be afraid to incorporate AI as well, right? AI is absolutely going to radicalize the workforce in terms of who's efficient, who's actually making impact. So by you being an AI user and adopter, I think that's going to be a good thing. So I think you can add in there, like, as well as AI. I recently got really into AI and I've been trying to use it to supplement my work and workflows. And they might ask you for examples. So be prepared if you're going to say that to have examples. But the idea being that you are you're attempting to be an AI power user, I think is going to work really well when we're talking to these companies.
Okay. All right. And so you mentioned Apollo. So do you have any Salesforce experience at all?
Salesforce specifically, no. Not specifically with Salesforce. With Apollo, yes, and then with DoorDash we use a different software. It's called Homebase, but not specifically with Salesforce.
So this is similar to earlier when you said, no, I don't have cold calling experience. It's like, well, instead of just painting yourself in that negative light, answer the question, but in a positive way, right? So, I don't have direct Salesforce experience, but we have used software in my door-to-door role called Homebase. It's very similar to Salesforce, and I'm currently using Apollo, and that's kind of where we're tracking all the lead stages and stuff. Very much like Salesforce. So while I haven't used a specific platform, I'm very confident in my ability to navigate CRMs and stuff like that. That sounds way better than like, no, I don't have the experience.
Right. Do you have any experience with SalesLoft?
I do not know.
Same thing here. Like SalesLoft and Apollo are the same. In fact, Apollo is probably more complex. So I would just answer confidently. Like, no, I've never used SalesLoft specifically, but again, have a ton of experience with these platforms. Right? There's thousands of them these days, and they're all very similar. So yeah, very confident I could scale and adapt to that.
And have you worked with any AI tools you're integrated into, or
Here you go. This is why we want to bring up AI earlier, so she can see. Oh yeah, he's got a little eye for AI. That's good.
Yeah, I'm definitely familiar.
Okay, I'd want much more of an answer there.
I use ChatGPT.
Outside of ChatGPT, have you used it in the sales process?
Yeah, so she's looking for like that I would give specific examples. And you could even use, preparing for these interviews. Like, yeah, 100%. I'm an AI power user. Here's how I use it. Here's some examples in my day to day. I even use it for my personal life, like for me personally, planning dates for my wife. And there's a lot I'd use it for actually, but be specific here with use cases and examples. And then you could even share that, yeah, in my job search process, I want to make sure I come to these interviews researched and studied. And so I have AI pull together resources for me to go through as I'm preparing for these interviews to make sure that I understand the personas, the value props, the pain points, so on and so forth. So yeah, I love using AI workflows. I'm curious to hear how is the team over there using AI? And I know it's a big question, but do you have any specific examples? That's going to give her an opportunity to maybe share something about the company with you. And she's going to be like, oh, cool. He's thinking about how he can use AI at the company. That's a good thing. So I think this is a bit of a whiff because she wanted you to give some specific examples, giving proof and evidence that you're an AI user. And we just totally just missed it. I like your honesty. But we don't want to just be honest. We want to be honest, but also show them that we have these adjacent experiences at the same time. And so we're not just like no, I don't have it, but it's like yeah, no, I don't really have it, but here's what I do have, right? And you immediately pivot and you spin those positive. And that way you're not just painting yourself in this bad light of like, oh, I don't have the experience, but you're actually showing her that I've got adjacent experience, especially with an entry level role. You're not going to have the experience. You're not going to have used Salesforce or SalesLoft or done these crazy things, but you've done things that are like them. So even an inventory system or even a POS system, if you were a cash register a clerk or whatever, the point is you've used systems like this before. So that's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear, no, I've never done anything like this. They want to hear, I haven't done that specific thing, but I have a lot of experience doing this. And I feel like that translates really well because of this reason.
But I will review everything with him and we're going to go from there, okay?
Okay, Susan. Thank you so much for the time today.
All right. So we missed the big one at the end, which is the close, right? So, hey, Susan, before I let you go, can I just ask one quick question? Is that all right? Yeah. So based on our conversation today and based on your review of my resume, I want you to know I'm super open to feedback. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I truly use feedback to get better. And so I'm just wondering, based on everything you've seen today, is there any reason I wouldn't have your recommendation to move forward to the next round? If so, actually, I would love the opportunity just to talk through that very plainly so that I can get better and improve. Otherwise, I look forward to the next round. And that's going to give her an opportunity to either redirect you and say, hey, actually, Cole, I'm not going to move you forward because XYZ reasons. I want you to get better at this. You need to tell a better story around this, so on and so forth. Then you're actually getting real feedback and you know what to improve for your next interview, even though you didn't get this job. Or she's going to say, no, you know what? I actually think you presented well. I've got, some concerns around your background as far as not having a lot of cold calling experience, but all in all, I think you have a good profile and I think it was a good conversation. Then that gives you an opportunity to objection handle. Be like, hey, well, thank you so much for being willing to give me the feedback. Yes, I know that I didn't really communicate the level of cold calling experience I have, and I'm still learning that skill set. But what I will say is that being in door to door, doing that high volume outbound, that gave me the resilience needed to go crush a role like this. And so I just want to say, based on the conversation we've had, what you guys are doing over at company and what the opportunity is, while I may not be the most qualified person that you're going to interview, I will be the hardest working. And I just want you to know that as we head out of here, that's my commitment to you if I were to be given this opportunity. That's it. Thank you. Appreciate your time. So that's not going to save the call, but it's needed to move to the next round of the interview process. Where this call fell apart was the very beginning. We let her take the frame right away. She moved right into corporate mode. It became just one more black and white interview. There wasn't this human dynamic element to it. There was no trust built, human connection built. So the whole thing was just sterile and dry. The other improvement area is we never just want to talk down about ourselves and just go, don't have the experience. We always want to go like, yeah, I don't have that specific experience, but I do have these other parallel, adjacent, whatever experiences that I think are relevant and will help me in the role. And then of course, at the very end, we always want to close the interview, because the worst thing that'll happen if you close the interview is your ego is going to get bruised a bit, because they're going to give you some real feedback, and it's going to actually help you though for your next interview. Actually, the worst thing that'll happen if you close is that they say, yeah, no, I don't really have any feedback for you. We'll follow up with our notes. That's the worst thing, because they're afraid to give you negative feedback, but they're also being vague about next steps, which means you're probably not moving forward, which sucks, because I wish people could just be honest and actually help you. But I've also been in the interview seat, and it can sometimes be uncomfortable to give a candidate blunt, honest feedback, constructive criticism, because you don't want to make them feel bad. So anyway, all that being said, if you need help breaking into tech sales, you need help with your job interviews, with how to structure your resume, how to find good companies to apply to, there's a free link below that you can grab for a step-by-step guide that shows you how to do all of this. And I'll see you on the next video.